everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Shifty's 49ers Talk. We are only 2 days away from Week 1 opening day at Chicago, and as you can tell, I could not be more excited. But in today's video, we're going to talk about my 5 bold predictions for the 49ers in this upcoming 2022 season. Now, before we get into that, just want to say that thank you very much for everyone who keeps stopping by the videos, liking the videos, subscribing, commenting. It really does mean a lot to me. So thank you very much, guys. Always appreciate that. Also going to be kicking off the stream probably around 9:30 or 9:40 a.m. on Sunday mornings, so come by for that, say what's up, and enjoy the game with your boy Shifty. Now let's not waste any time, let's get into my 5 bold predictions. Just before we start off with my first prediction, I do want to say that ideally, and I think that these predictions are going to go from a little bit more likely to a little bit less likely, potentially, but let's see if you guys agree with that or not. But in my first prediction, I'm going to have Brandon Aiyuk leading the 49ers in receiving yards in 2022, but there's going to be a two-parter with this. I'm going to have Jennings leading all receivers with receiving touchdowns this year. So why this? Well, if we look at how the offseason went, of course, Trey Lance got to spend a lot of time with Brandon Aiyuk, especially when you compare it to how much time he had with Deebo Samuel. Now, you could argue which player is a better player. I think personally Deebo overall is a better player, but that's strictly as a receiver. I think maybe Brandon Aiyuk might be the better guy here. We look at what happened, let's say, in Trey Lance's last regular season start against the Houston Texans. Brandon Aiyuk, 4 receptions, 94 yards. Deebo Samuel, 3 receptions, 63 yards, did have the big touchdown pass. But, you know, and I hate to be this guy, but if you take away that big touchdown pass, you're talking like 2 catches for 18 yards for Deebo. Plus, you factor in all the chemistry that Aiyuk and Trey Lance built in the offseason. I think Aiyuk is primed for a big-time year. Now, moving on to Jennings with the receiving touchdowns. If we look at last year, he was tied for second on the team with 5 receiving touchdowns. Deebo had 6, Kittle had 6, and then Jennings and Aiyuk both had 5. So I don't think it's a huge stretch to see Jennings become, just like a touchdown machine kind of guy, where we know he's very effective in the red zone. We know he's very effective on third downs, where maybe he breaks a tackle and then takes it in for a touchdown. But I just love the way that Jennings runs those routes in those shorter yardage situations. I think he's going to be a huge asset to Trey Lance. We saw so many of Jennings' touchdowns last year just be in those like short yardage situations against Minnesota, against Atlanta, against Philadelphia. Later on in the season, Week 18 against the LA Rams, he had a very nice touchdown there, all within the red zone. A lot of them within end goal to go. So really hoping that Jennings can have a big year in terms of touchdown productivity. The second bold prediction that I'm going to make for the Niners in this coming season is I'm going to have TDP, Tyrion Davis-Price, leading the 49ers in rushing touchdowns. Now, I think it's going to be fairly easy to say, assuming, all these guys stay at least relatively healthy, that Elijah Mitchell should lead the team in rushing, but you never know. But I'm going to have TDP being the guy who leads the team in rushing touchdowns. I think he's just such a physical, powerful back, and here's a big reason why we drafted him in the 3rd round. Although, yes, he could develop into an all-around back, I think initially he's going to be that guy that we use on short yardage situations, goal line situations, where with his versatility, his power, his strength, his size, he's going to be able to grind out those short yards, and that's going to lead to him getting a whole bunch of rushing touchdowns. Also, I think that it's going to be somewhat of a running back by committee. It's going to be who has the hot hand. Again, I believe Elijah Mitchell will lead the team in rushing, but I think there's going to be some weeks maybe he misses some time through injury, or maybe Jeff Wilson Jr. is playing a little bit better in certain periods throughout the season, and then TDP himself. But I believe that TDP is going to lead the 49ers in rushing touchdowns simply for the fact that I think he's going to be a big time player in those critical, absolutely critical short yardage situations. For my third bold prediction, I'm going to have rookie cornerback Samuel Womack leading the 49ers in interceptions this coming year. My prediction is Samuel Womack has about 5 interceptions this year. So why am I going with this prediction? Well, I think initially, and especially early on in the year, a lot of teams are going to be throwing the ball at Womack, and they're going to be throwing the ball at him a lot. When the other opposing offenses line up against the 49ers, they're going to see Charvarius Ward, they're going to see Emmanuel Moseley, then they're going to see a 5th-round rookie. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets tested early and often. And I think he's shown in preseason just the way that he plays the game. He has a feel for the game and a feel for the position that he's going to be able to make those plays. That's what he does. So I really like Womack to be able to capitalize on all the times he's going to get targeted this year. Now, of course, you could make the case for Emmanuel Moseley, let's say. Why not Moseley leading the team in interceptions? Well, when you look at his career, he started 28 games. He only has 3 career interceptions. But not only that, Emmanuel Moseley does tend to miss some time. He misses games seemingly every year. Yeah, maybe it's only 3, 4, or 5 games this year, but that's something that you can almost take to the bank with Emmanuel Moseley. And now moving on to Charvarius Ward, who you could make an argument for leading the team in interceptions. Like Moseley, he misses time. The last few years, not a lot of time, but 3 games here, 4 games there. And then you look at his career interception numbers, 4 interceptions in 43 career starts. So to me, I think Womack is going to be the guy who leads the team there. With safeties, I could have maybe accepted an argument for Jimmy Ward, but we know for a fact he's already missing 4 games. So I just think by raw numbers that Womack will be the guy who leads the team in interceptions in 2022. This next prediction is going to be a really, really fun one and something that's a little bit out of left field. I'm going to have the 49ers scoring 3 special teams touchdowns in 2022. So what's the breakdown for these touchdowns? Well, I'm going to have one Ray McCloud, whether it's a kick return or a punt return or whatever we have him on. I think he will take one to the house this year. Another one, I'm going to have our special teams coordinator, Brian Schneider, draw up a really, really funky, fake punt perhaps, maybe fake field goal that leads to a touchdown. And I'm really hoping it's one of those games against Seattle, but maybe they get the ball in Mitch Wishnowski's hands. Maybe he runs for it. Maybe it's just they snap it back and it's maybe Kyle Juszczyk is in the backfield. We know that he can throw the ball a little bit, but we'll see. I think there's going to be an interesting fake play that turns into a touchdown. And finally, for the 3rd special teams touchdown, I'm going to have us maybe forcing a fumble, whether it's on a punt return or a kick return, and we pick it up and then take it to the house. So 3 special teams touchdowns for the 49ers in 2022. Ooh, I really do hope this one comes true. Last but not least, my 5th bold prediction is going to be I have Samson Ebukam, a guy who I'm huge on this year. I'm going to have him having at least 12 sacks in 2022. I think Ebukam is primed for a massive year. Now, when you look at Samson Ebukam, his career high for sacks in a regular season is only 4.5. And that's why I think this is a pretty bold prediction to say, hey, he could do triple that in this year. So why am I going with that? Well, some of the things that really factor in is that, to me, just in general, his gameplay with the 49ers just got so much better as the season went on. I think he really took to the coaching of Chris Kasarik, and we just saw him make so many plays down the stretch of last season. So a couple of things and numbers that I want to throw your guys' way as to why I think Sammy Womack has 12 sacks or maybe even more. Number one, the guy has played, not started every game in his career, but he's played in all the games since he's arrived in the NFL. He has not missed one game. So one of those things is he is an availability kind of guy. He's not going to miss time, of course, and I hope that stays true in 2022. When we look at last year, he did have 4.5 sacks in the regular season for the 49ers. Samson Ebukam did not become an actual starter for the 49ers until week 7. Now, if we look at his defensive snaps, the percentage of the plays on defense that he participated in last season, in the first half, and I'm going to factor in the playoffs too, so in the first 10 games, Samson Ebukam appeared and played in 44% of the defensive snaps in the last 10 games. So we're talking the last 7 regular season games and the 3 playoff games. He appeared in 61% of the defensive snaps, a 17% increase. So let's just say if he plays 61% of the defensive snaps for the entire 17-game season, I think he's primed for a big-time year. Now let's look at the numbers too, so towards the tail end of the year. So if we look at the last 8 games, and again, I'm going to include the postseason here. So the last 5 regular season games and 3 postseason games, he had 5.5 sacks in those 8 games. Not only that though, he had 11 quarterback hits. And if there was anything that we saw down the stretch, there were so many times in the playoffs. In the playoffs alone, he only had 2 sacks, but he could have easily had about 4 or 5. So many times we saw Dak Prescott, Aaron Rodgers, even Matthew Stafford get sacked. Maybe it was Bosa or Armstead or whoever else got there, but Ebukam was right there as well, and I think he's going to be able to finish up a bunch of those sacks this year. I have Samson Ebukam going for 12 sacks this year for the 49ers. And that's going to be it, guys, for my 5 bold predictions for the 49ers. Now, I think this one in particular would be a really fun thing for you guys to comment on. Well, what you think of my bold predictions, but also some of your bold predictions for the season. I think it's going to be a great season. Can't wait for Sunday to kick it off. And, do subscribe. It really, really means the world to me, guys. And, I'm going to say 2 things right now. The butt counts. Then I'm going to catch y'all on the flip side.